You're listening to The Stephen Torriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Torriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. We have a whole lot to get into, and I actually want to get into some election stuff, some poll numbers. There was a shocking new poll that just came out, and man, Joe Biden has to be crapping in his pants. I'm sure those depends are going to be coming in real handy after these poll numbers. There's actually there's quite a lot of polls that have been done because, as you know, this is election time. And so pollsters right now this is their favorite time of the year, is this time right here, 6 months before election time. And I have to remind you that in September is when ballots start going out. In September, in most states, you can start voting early. And that's exactly what the Republicans need to do this election, because we didn't do that last election. Everybody went to the polls on election day, and just like we discussed on the last show, that is a really, really bad strategy. So, like, it is not a good way going into an election trying to catch up to all the ballots, to catch up to all of the votes that Democrats have been accumulating for the last 2 months. And so everybody's going to have to go out early, vote early, because you never know what's going to happen on election day. 'Tis the season for the most important election in our lifetimes. This is a real fork in the road where America, I would probably say since the Civil War, has a very, very defined fork in the road. This country can go either way, and it all depends on who wins this election. And I know you've heard me say it before, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer all the time, but I have to be honest. If we have to go through another 4 years of this, I don't know where this country's going to be. I don't know if we can ever get it back. And in fact, I don't know how long this country would last in this situation for another 4 years. And I'm not the only one that thinks that way. So here is a opinion piece from The Hill, which The Hill is a little bit on the moderate side, doesn't really swing left or right, which is a rarity these days. But it's titled, this just came out 12 hours ago. It says, Biden's quiet comeback may be over. It says, immediately following President Biden's State of the Union address in March, the incumbent president saw a surge in the polls, which seemed poised to revive his campaign and re-energize the Democratic Party. Now, just 2 months later, it increasingly appears that Biden's quiet comeback is running out of steam. Though mid-April, Biden's surge persisted, creating the illusion that Biden had finally found his stride and would ride the momentum into the election. However, polls released this week paint a very bleak picture. Indeed, a new national poll from CNN shows that former President Donald Trump leading President Biden by 6 points in a head-to-head horse race, 49% to 43%. Worse, just one-third, 34% of voters approve of Biden's handling of the economy, a tried and true metric for how Americans will likely vote. Man, is that not... Truer words have never been spoken. The number one thing that I hear just, and I know it's anecdotal, but the one thing that I hear in my life, my personal capacity, is people, they can't sustain this. The one thing that everybody is worried about is at the grocery store, at the gas station, anywhere. Everybody says this economy is crap, and they would not be wrong. This economy is crap. And you notice how you don't hear Bidenomics anymore. Remember they tried pushing that talking point. What a freaking joke that turned out to be. It's because these people are so detached, folks. These people are so detached from regular America. And you have to ask yourself, well, when's the last time Biden pumped his own gas? Or when's the last time Joe Biden went and bought his own groceries? This is why it is so important that our politicians, the people we elect to run our country, to represent us, stay connected with the people. But Joe Biden has been in politics for 50 years, so he can't possibly be connected to the people. In fact, this guy, I sometimes I don't even think he realizes the internet exists with as much as he lies. He lies and he'll just say the same lie over again, as if nobody just heard that other lie. And I think this is what he's been used to his entire career, is that he can lie to people in one town, then go to another town and tell the exact same lie, and nobody would know any better because there was no social media. Of course, there was TV, but in all honesty, that's why Joe Biden had to drop out of one race before, the last time he was running for president, because he got caught in a lie. So it's like, this does not surprise me at all. These poll numbers are so bad. And not only that, but Joe Biden's approval rating is the lowest on record ever. The lowest approval rating in history. And it's obvious. Where are the 81 million voters? Where are the 81 million people that voted for Joe Biden? You are not going to find them because the man did not get 81 million votes. That's why. And that is becoming ever more apparent the closer we get into this. And I got to say, with his speeches, it is clear and obvious. There was an observation that somebody made on the Jimmy Dore show that I noticed the other day too, is that you guys remember that audio piece. I posted it on my social media, but you remember that speech where Joe Biden started reading the teleprompter again, where he says the word pause? Well, when you look a little bit deeper into that video, the one thing you'll notice is that I don't think Joe Biden was supposed to say 4 more years. Somebody messed up on the teleprompter, and when Joe Biden said 4 more years, which was completely weird because who says 4 more years at the beginning of the sentence? You'll just have to watch the video and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But what Joe Biden was reading was the prompt for the audience to start chanting 4 more years. And so not only is Joe Biden giving scripts during his speeches, but his audience is completely fake. Remember what I said, and you go back and watch that video, the guy that's sitting behind Joe Biden, you can see that he's looking over at something as if he's waiting for the perfect time. As if he's checking on when he should start saying 4 more years, when he should start chanting 4 more years, or when he should start clapping. That speech, ladies and gentlemen, was completely fake. We are getting fake speeches, fake audiences, fake chants from Joe Biden's campaign. Where are the 81 million people that voted for Joe Biden? You're not going to find them. That's obvious at this point. Anyways, back into the article. So put it another way. If consumer sentiment is any indication of Biden's electoral fate, Democrats have reason to worry. In fact, 65% of registered voters say the economy is extremely important to them. And in analyzing how this group of economic-centric voters plan to cast their ballots, Biden is projected to lose by over 30 points, 62% to 30%. In that same vein, state-level polling from Fox News shows Trump is back in the driver's seat, with his New York City trial doing little to dent his numbers. The polls show Trump leading Biden in 7 key swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, by anywhere from 1 to 5 points, making his path to victory slimmer by the day. Wow. I gotta say, folks, the numbers look abysmal for Joe Biden. But this is the part that bothers me in this paragraph, is the New York City trial doing little to dent his numbers. Is it not sick that we have to have an election where the Democrats are using lawfare against Joe Biden's opponent? This is clear and obvious. This is a weaponized justice system for political purposes. They are using the justice system in order to hurt Donald Trump's poll numbers Folks, that is called weaponizing the justice system for political purposes. And it's just crazy how it's just normalized now, how it's just accepted that a political party would use the justice system in a democratic state with a democratic attorney general and a judge that donated to Joe Biden's campaign. And this is just supposed to be normal now. This is the way Republicans have to conduct elections now, because Democrats don't want to lose, because Democrats suck, their ideas suck, and they can't figure out a way to get this old mumbling, bumbling fool past the finish line again, because he lied, because in 2020 was nothing but deceivement. It was nothing but deception on the American people, and they're not going to be able to do it again. There is no COVID. They're not going to be able to do this mass mail-in balloting scheme, this insane strategy to pump out millions of mail-in ballots and then count them for weeks after the election. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. They're going to try, but they're not going to be able to do it. So moreover, while pluralities of voters in each state agree that Trump hush money trial is appropriate or fair per Fox News, most voters, especially Republicans, say a guilty verdict would have no impact on their willingness to vote for Trump and in many cases would increase their likelihood to vote for him. This is something else I think is vitally important for people to know and understand. What people need to do with this hush money case, which we need to stop calling it hush money, it needs to be called an NDA case. There is no crime here, folks. You have to ask yourself, for people that are listening that think this is justified, what they're doing to Donald Trump, that this is just the justice system playing out, you need to ask yourself the question, what is the crime? If you cannot think of the crime within the first 5 seconds of why a former president is facing prison and Joe Biden's chief political rival is being taken off the campaign trail because he's being wrapped up in court in New York City, you need to ask yourself the question, what is the crime? If you can't think of it, then that is an issue. Every single person should know what the crime is, and we don't, because there is no crime. This is a show trial. We talked about show trials in the past. That's what this is. This is a show trial. And it's just so sickening. It is sad. It is disgusting. It is, quite frankly, infuriating that these people would abuse our justice system like this and cause so much damage to the trust and credibility of the rule of law. All in the name of trying to get a dent, all in the name of trying to bring Donald Trump's poll numbers down. This is sick. Every single one of these people need to be brought up on charges of conspiracy to violate people's civil rights. That's right, I said it. And I've been saying it for a long time. Immediately after taking his hand off the Bible, Donald Trump needs to investigate all these judges with the country's largest RICO investigation, federal RICO charges, on all these judges and DAs, attorney generals, Weissman, Bragg, Jack Smith, the judges, Merchan, and Garan. All of them, every single one of them need to be brought up on charges, investigated, so that we can find out if this was a coordinated effort to try and interfere in a federal election. I think that's the least. That is the least that they can do for the American people. There needs to be accountability for this, because we can't keep having elections where Democrats run the tables using lawfare. You can't do it. It completely ruins the trust in our justice system when it's used as a political weapon. All right? And they know this, folks. They know this, but they are willing to destroy it anyways, all in the name of stopping Donald Trump. So while these are just 2 polls, it's clear that Trump is back in the lead. Even if he's been found in contempt and threatened with jail time, in truth, these polls reveal a trend that should alarm the Biden campaign, which surely had felt the momentum turning in their favor after the State of the Union. The State of the Union, nobody even remembers. All right? And it's honestly, nobody even remembers the State of the Union. The only thing I remember about Trump's State of the Union was Nancy Pelosi tearing up the speech afterwards. You remember that? Like a little belligerent child throwing a temper tantrum. That's what that is. And frankly, that's how I see a lot of these Democrats. They act like children. All right, it's like we're dealing with a bunch of adult children who have lost the ability to reason. They have lost the ability to be rational, and they have completely went off the hook. And Nancy Pelosi is the perfect example of this, ripping up a speech at the State of the Union. And it's been normalized. So that is just, it's okay for Nancy Pelosi to act like a little belligerent child after the State of the Union. But yet somehow Democrats thought it was, Democrats are the ones that are going to bring normalcy back into the White House. Yeah, okay. This is what I'm saying, man. It's like, I think people are just so sick and tired of the gaslighting. People are so sick and tired of the lies, the deception. They're just sick and tired of it. They're sick and tired of people coming out and saying, yes, the economy's doing great, when you got people drowning out there in credit card debt, grocery prices. The inflation is off the hook. And these people will just lie right to your face. From February through mid-April, polls showed Biden, if still trailing Trump, trending in the right direction. In fact, there was a point in which Biden was leading Trump in 18 national polls during the time. Further, Biden was racking up a series of wins, including improving economic sentiment, a key metric the administration was desperately trying to move the needle on. In addition, the initial news fodder surrounding Trump, who had just begun spending most of his time in the courtroom rather than on the campaign trail, consumed the media's attention. Well, that is purposeful. That's exactly what they wanted to do. So their lawfare strategy is working. I mean, for the most part, they got Donald Trump wrapped up so he can't go send his message out. He can't go campaign while Joe Biden is doing what? Campaigning. So they're doing exactly what they want to do. And they're going to get a conviction because that's what they want. They want to throw Donald Trump in jail. That's what they want to do. And sometimes I just say, screw it, man. I know it's easier said because I'm not the one going in jail, but sometimes I'm just like, would it make these people feel better if Donald Trump just went to jail for a few days and then got out? Like I said, we're dealing with a bunch of belligerent children. They are a bunch of adult children. And they can't even say why Donald Trump needs to go to the jail. You ask 5 different people why Donald Trump should go to jail, and you'll get 5 different answers. But none of them are actual crimes. They just say that he's corrupt, he's crooked, he's arrogant. It's like, okay, but really? Like, you're going to send someone to jail because the mob doesn't like him? This is crazy, man. So while Trump was stuck in court, Biden pulled in massive donations to pad his cash lead over his opponent. At one Radio City fundraiser where Biden was joined by former President Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, the Biden campaign raised more than $25 million, a record. For the GOP, Republican infighting was, and still is, on full display in the House, damaging the credibility of the entire party. On Wednesday, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene announced she would force a vote to oust Speaker Mike Johnson, who relied on Democratic support to pass a series of foreign aid bills last week. Worse, a scandal plagued the GOP's biggest fundraising arm, the Republican National Committee, during this time, causing mass layoffs and leadership changes. Okay, yeah, the RNC committee, they got to clean everything up. This is exactly what needs to happen. You got people in the RNC that are making $20,000 a month, and nobody even knows what they're doing. But all these people are sending their money into the RNC, and they're not getting any wins. You have, what's her name, that just Ronna McDaniel. She was spending millions of dollars on bullcrap and not getting any wins. So I totally agree with the RNC doing a complete purge over there, because it is clear and obvious that the corruption, the scandals, the waste, fraud, and abuse has gotten out of control over there. And in fact, exactly what they're doing at the RNC is exactly what Donald Trump needs to do whenever he gets into the White House. Purge the entire bureaucracy and replace all of the bureaucrats with regular Americans. Get the corruption out. You are going to have to scrape these people out of there, okay, with a shovel. You're going to have to dig these people out, root and branch. But as far as the credibility, as far as the Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm not really sure how I feel about this. This is a touchy subject for Republicans, and that's why you're not going to hear a lot of people talking about it, but I will on this show. Personally, my gut tells me to leave the issue alone, but my heart tells me, okay, that my principle tells me that you're going to have to get rid of Mike Johnson. And this is why I say this. I know we're in an election year, but people have to remember that if they're coming up with excuses for this, okay, oh, we don't have the majority, we only have a 1-seat majority, people need to remember that Nancy Pelosi had a 2-seat majority, and look how much she got done with the House. And so what you're hearing right now from Republicans that say it's a bad idea to oust Mike Johnson, you're going to be hearing the same excuse if Republicans had a 50-seat majority or a 60-seat majority. It doesn't matter how many seats you give the Republicans. They are not fighters. They are cowards. They are not built for this kind of offense, folks. So the only way that you're going to get what you want as an American, as a conservative, as far as weaning out corruption, stopping this weaponization of the government, stopping all the stuff that we know is happening, to actually have a opposition party, you're going to have to get a better Speaker of the House. And I'm sorry, Mike Johnson just isn't it. I thought he was going to be it. I was praising Mike Johnson all up and down this show. We spent a whole hour on it. But the fact is he had people whispering in his ear, this is the problem with Washington, D.C. You get in there and you have all these, the bureaucracy. They start whispering in your ear. They start following you around, his staff. You start listening to the wrong people. You start losing sight of the real objective. And I'm sorry, folks, but if the objective is to, quote unquote, get things done, okay, no, I'm not buying that. Shut it down. Okay, if this is what you call getting things done, putting the American people in more and more inflation, putting them in debt, okay, building, giving a $400 million or a $1 billion building to the FBI that just got done spying on 287,000 Americans illegally, that just got done committing a coup attempt against a sitting president, Donald Trump, during his first term. You're going to give those people a brand new building that's bigger than the Pentagon, and you call that getting things done? I don't want things getting done then. Shut it down. If this is what we're going to get when we get the House, we don't want it. Shut it down. You're not there to, quote, get things done. I know we keep hearing this from both sides of the aisle, but the American people aren't sending you there to get things done. We're sending you there to improve the lives of Americans. These people have spent trillions of dollars, and yet we have homeless living on the streets at record numbers. We have bridges falling apart, planes falling out of the sky, a border that is wide freaking open, drug overdoses at record numbers. This is called getting things done. We don't want it. Shut it down. And that's how I feel about the whole Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do it. Just do it. Why not? I mean, you got everybody's afraid that Hakeem Jeffries is going to run the House. Isn't he already kind of de facto running the House right now? I mean, they're getting everything they want. I mean, to me, it is more important that we get somebody in there that is going to do the will of the people. All right? And I'm sorry, but passing massive spending bills that cause massive inflationary spending bills, I don't call that getting things done on behalf of the American people. That's not why we sent you there. And so, like, again, to go back to my original point, if this is called getting things done, we don't want things getting done. The American people would be better off you not getting things done and just hiding the ball for the next 6 months. All right? If you're not going to be an opposition party to the Democrats, then just don't do anything. But sitting there banning TikTok, sending $61 billion to a foreign country in the Ukraine war that we now know is going to go on for 10 years. That's what they're planning on anyways. All right, to send all this money to secure another country's border while leaving your own border open, it is disgusting. We would rather you not do anything because now the American people got to send $61 billion to a war in Ukraine that is most likely going to corruption, and they didn't get a border wall, and they didn't get a secure border. So my whole point on this is we'd be better off not doing anything. That's what I say. Shut it down. every day that this Congress is in session is another day that the American people lose more and more of their freedoms, is another day that the American people go more and more into debt. And if this is called getting things done, if this is your idea of getting things done, we don't want you doing anything. Don't do nothing. How about that one? All right, so to go back into this article after that rant, this is almost done. However, Biden's marks on all three issues, the economy, foreign policy, and immigration, are markedly down since entering office. In January 2020, 61% approved of Biden's handling of the economy. That is because that was the Trump's economy coming back starting in January. And then when you look at the charts, when you look at the graph, and I'm not joking, you look at the economy, the chart of the economy, in January, February, and March, you can see the graph going up. And then as soon as Biden's policies took effect of his executive orders on the energy infrastructure and the inflationary spending, you just watch the graph just take it looked like a hockey stick, just right through the floor. And so in the beginning, the economy was actually Donald Trump's economy coming back. And so for the Democrats out there saying that there's a lag on presidential administrations, there is. But it's not 4 years, okay? It's more like 4 months. And that's exactly what you can see on the graph of the economy. Is about April, May, the economy just took a dirt nap. And that is exactly what you can see. And so, yeah, everybody was feeling pretty good about the economy in January, February, and March. But then as soon as Biden's policies start taking effect, boom, done. So 61% approved of Biden's handling of the economy, 60% approved of his handling of foreign affairs, and 57% approved of his handling of immigration, per the Harvard-Harris poll. Today, Biden's approval rating across all three metrics is underwater. 42% on the economy, 42% on foreign affairs, and 38% on immigration, according to the most recent Harvard-Harris poll released last week. Whether due to inflation driving economic pessimism, the still porous southern border keeping immigration at the top of voters' minds, or the growing chaos on college campuses, Biden appears to be leaping from one crisis to the next, seemingly unable to effectively manage or lead the country. Because it's an illegitimate administration. That's why. Folks, what you're watching right now is what an illegitimate administration looks like. It's exactly what we're watching. These people were never supposed to be there. These people cannot do this. This is a freaking disaster. And all you have is a bunch of Obama holdovers that made their way back into the swamp, flooding the zone with ideology. That is it. And you want to know how I know people don't know what they're doing in the Biden administration? Here is a piece of audio from the Biden administration's chief economic counsel, the guy that everything that has to do with the economy runs through this guy. And he approves it, he builds it, he creates it. His chief economic advisor. And this is what he said during an interview when asked a question about the United States ever going bankrupt. Here, check this out.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Since they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my
folks, what is this? President Joe Biden's economic advisor, Jared Bernstein, shows the officials struggling to explain why the U.S. government chooses to borrow money when it can just print more. It is clear and obvious that these people don't know what they're doing, man. This administration is being ran like an illegitimate administration. That is what's happening. And it actually, hearing that from the chief economic advisor for the United States government is quite concerning when this guy can't explain basic fundamental questions. This is an article from the Free Beacon. Great website, by the way. It says, while Bernstein has specialized in economics for decades, he holds no degrees in the field. According to his biography on the White House website, Bernstein has a bachelor's degree in fine arts from the Manhattan School of Music, a master's degree in social work from the Hunter School of Social Work, and a master's degree in philosophy and PhD in social welfare from Columbia University. My God, folks, this is exactly what we're getting from our colleges and universities. The same universities that are chanting death to America right now in these Palestinian protests? This is where this guy is from. He's one of those people. And so what you're watching in these protests all over the country, these pro-Hamas protests, is our future. These same people at Harvard and Columbia and UCLA, all these people are going to be going into government. They're going to be going into the courtrooms. Like, this is crazy. And this is why all of this is stemmed from our education system. And this is exactly what you're going to get. This guy is a product of the radical ideologues that are coming out of our colleges and universities, getting a job as the chief economic advisor for a presidential administration that doesn't know basic fundamental questions. And so it's like, is it any surprise that we have our country, that this country seems like it is a plane that is on fire, doing a downward death roll? And you got the Biden administration and the Biden campaign coming out over the loudspeaker trying to tell people to make sure that their food trays are in the upright position and to make sure that their seats aren't reclined. It's so bizarre, the dystopian nightmare that we're living in. They're coming out and they're gaslighting everybody and saying everything's just great. The unemployment's low. We just got the CHIPS Act passed, the Inflation Reduction Act that actually increased inflation, and the infrastructure bill, all these things that Republicans voted for. The same Republicans that are there to get things done. This is what they're doing. And I have to ask you, do you see any bridges getting built around your house? Do you see any new buildings getting put up? You see your roads getting done? Do you see your energy bills going down? Well, where's all this money going? Because if it's supposed to go to infrastructure, and this is what the taxpayers are supposedly funding, then why aren't we seeing infrastructure built? Like, these are the things that people are watching with their own eyes. And the Biden administration can't explain it. And instead of explaining it, you get this guy right here. You get this guy right here that is completely confused when asked questions about our economy. And you have the Biden administration coming out and saying, look at all the things we've done. You have the Republican Party, which is supposed to be the opposition party, that's now being controlled by the Democratic Party. It is just bonkers. I say shut the whole thing down. Shut it all down. This is insane. All right? This is like we are like on a death train. All right? Doing loop-de-loops. And there is a chunk of the rail missing. And we can all see it. This is unsustainable. It is. That is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a untenable, unsustainable situation. And we have a illegitimate administration and a controlled opposition party that is just slamming on the gas and saying, hey, you guys sent us here to get things done. Oh, it's crazy, but this should be good news. This is good news that it appears that Donald Trump is moving up into the polls. It appears as if the American people are not buying what the Biden administration is selling. And that is because of alternative media. I cannot praise alternative media enough. Alternative media like podcasts, like YouTube videos, the American people in massive numbers are coming out and trying to shout from the rooftops, hey, yo, we got a problem. This is going way off the rails. And because of alternative media, now the American people are starting to see the truth. All right, they're starting to see, like, yeah, all of this is insanity. They're starting to see the lies. They're starting to see through the gaslighting. If not for alternative media, I'm sorry, folks, but we would not, Donald Trump would probably, who knows? What probably would have happened is Joe Biden would be riding smooth all the way to the election now. Because I am a firm believer that because the people were not informed in 2020 when it comes to Joe Biden, most people, most conservatives like myself, knew that Joe Biden was going to be a disaster. But a lot of people didn't. I think a lot of people genuinely felt as if Joe Biden was going to be a uniter, that Joe Biden was going to be a master on foreign policy. I mean, after all, the guy was in there for 50 friggin' years. So he has to be better than Donald Trump, right? No, absolutely not. And so because of alternative media, now people are starting to see the truth. They're starting to see exactly what all of us seen before 2020. We tried warning people, but people didn't listen, man. People did not listen. And to show just how much alternative media is changing the landscape, it is changing the way politics is, it is changing our entire country. The American people, the content creators that are out there creating shows, trying to inform their fellow Americans, is working. People are getting the truth. Now, is there a lot of other conspiracy theories and other really off-the-wall stuff out there? Absolutely there is. But it's out there for everybody to see. At least you know it. I am a firm believer. I am somewhat of an absolutist when it comes to the First Amendment. I am on the side of flood the zone with all the information. And the American people are smart enough to decipher it. And they're smart enough to make up their own minds. And the people that believe in the really wonky, crazy conspiracy theories, they're not out there in the masses of the millions. But what we have now, this media apparatus that's been in control for decades, for 60, 70, 80 years, the CNNs and the ABCs, the MSNBCs and the NBCs, all these media outlets, they're losing their grip on power. And this is why you see this real clash of powers right now between the American people and the Washington establishment, because they see a very, very bleak future for them. And the biggest threat to them right now is the truth. And people, they're just not watching CNN. They're not watching these media outlets that lie to them anymore. These media outlets have become propaganda machines for a political party. CNN, MSNBC, they've picked sides, and they picked the wrong side. But what you're seeing right now is mainstream media going down into the tanks. Alternative media is going through the roof because people just want the truth. They can handle it. Give it to the people. Ronald Reagan said this the best. This guy, in many ways, had the same mindset I did, where he said, just give the American people all the information, be honest with them, be upfront with them, and they can handle it. The American people are very smart. They're not dumb. But we have a political party and their media apparatus that want to try and control the situation like they've been for years and decades, but they can't now. And so now the truth is starting to come out. The media is starting to become so desperate that they have chosen sides. They're so desperate to retain their power that they feel like they've picked the side of the Democrats. They've picked the Democratic Party because they own all the institutions. They own all the power. They own the media outlets. They own the woke Inc. And they chose the Democrats. And unfortunately, they chose the wrong side. So one last article I want to get into here. Here is a story from the Western Journal, and this just came out yesterday. Says, looking to unify America, vast majority of Americans distrust news media on every level, report shows. So it says, while some say that Americans are more polarized than ever, there are certainly still points that the country is relatively united on. One such topic is a distrust of our news media. A poll released Wednesday, conducted by the American Press Institute and the Associated Press NORC, Center for Public Affairs Research, my God, that's a mouthful, found that over half of Americans, 53%, are extremely or very concerned about news organizations reporting inaccurate information during the election. Another 30% of U.S. adults said it is an issue that they are somewhat concerned about. And as to having actual confidence in the information, the number is even worse. Most Americans follow news about presidential, 77%, and local and state elections, 64%. At least somewhat closely and more report frequently received news about elections from nation. What the hell is this? So here it is. So it says most Americans follow news about presidential and local and state elections, and yet only 14% of respondents express a great deal of confidence in election-related information they receive from the national sources, and only 11% say the same about local media, the poll reported. 14% more Americans admit they believe in astrology. Misinformation was a major talking point during both the 2016 and 2020 elections, as each side accused the other of reporting false information. Well, which one is more right? I'm serious, ask yourself this question. In the last 8-9 years, which side has been more accurate? The right. Republicans, conservatives, the critical thinkers, the ones that question everything. You know, the ones that, I don't know, ask questions. Yeah, those people, we've been right on everything. Russia collusion was a hoax. All right? These people, and I'm telling you, it doesn't stop there. Look at all the stuff that the right has been accurate on. With COVID, the Russia collusion hoax, just go down the list. And then look at all the stories that the left has been wrong on. These people have been consistently wrong on every major story the last 10 years. From the Russia collusion hoax, from COVID, to everything. It's because they're lying, folks. It's either they're lying or their naivete is off the charts. But either way, it is the left that it has destroyed news outlets. So the biggest was in 2016, when then presidential candidate Donald Trump was reported to be colluding with Russia. Aha! A story that was ultimately shown to be baseless, yet spurred an investigation by special counsel Robert Mueller that dogged much of Trump's presidency. This coming election cycle will face unique problems that previous ones have not, as artificial intelligence technology has expanded since 2020. Americans have worries over how AI can be negatively harnessed to spread misinformation, as 42% say the respondents said that they were extremely or very concerned. Other issues, such as whether news organizations will report unverified information or that news will be biased, worried 47% and 44%, respectively. It's hard to blame Americans for their distrust of the establishment media. Whether it's news organizations intentionally ignoring or downplaying the story of Hunter Biden's laptop, or liberal news sources constantly covering the President Joe Biden's blunders, there's a whole list of reasons to be skeptical of the establishment media. Well, so what are we saying here? So one side lies completely about a laptop, a complete cover-up of a story, and then the government censors that story, and then the other side is just showing the American people and how old and decrepit Joe Biden is, and somehow... No, that's not a lie. So you have one side that's lying, gaslighting the people. One side is a propaganda outlet, and the other side is just showing people the truth. I don't see the confusion there. There is no moral equivalency on that one. But while media is as untrustworthy as ever, it's also as abundant as ever. It is no longer the 1960s when all that most Americans had to choose from were major networks and newspapers. Conservative media outlets like the Western Journal aren't hard to find. Before the election cycle is a perfect time to begin vetting different sources and finding which ones you trust and which ones don't care about integrity. While it's impossible to find a source of news without a bias, as long as you know what that bias is, you avoid falling into an echo chamber. The news is important, but it's just as important that it's true. Well, I do have to say, folks, the number one reason for this show is to inform so that people can engage and that we can fight against this tyranny that is on the horizon. This dystopian nightmare that we're living in. All I'm doing is just showing you the truth. Do I have a bias? Absolutely. But I let you know what my bias is right out the gate. I'm not trying to hide my bias, And in some cases, I sit on the fence on things, especially when it comes to abortion. I am right there in the middle. But, I mean, of course, I think when I say middle, I'm saying like 15 weeks, that's like where I'm at with, abortion. Anything after that should be considered murder. Okay? I mean, obviously, the way I see it is if that baby was not aborted, it would be a life. And if you have a courtroom that when a pregnant mother is murdered, that person gets charged with 2 murders. That is because that is a real person inside that mother, and so therefore, that is a living human being. And me personally, I don't think it should be killed, a month or 2 before it's born. I think it's wrong. That's how I feel about it. But other than that, I've been open with you. And I do have leftist people listening to my show. I think they're the smart ones. They're the rational ones. They're not the radical leftists. They are the sane, rational Democrats that want to hear both sides of the story. And this is why I always say, and this is something I learned from Dennis Prager, the left never knows how conservatives think. They never know what we think. They never know what we're saying. They never know what we're doing. But we know everything about them. We study under them. We talk about them. We know what they're doing. We know what they're talking about. We listen to them. But leftists don't do that for conservatives. They don't want to listen because they fear the truth. I pride myself in giving my audience the truth when it comes to things. If it's something that Donald Trump does that I don't like, I will tell you. If it's something that Republicans do that I don't like, I will tell you. If it's something that Democrats do that I like, I will tell you. What we're watching right now is the mainstream media losing its ability to own the information so that they can bend it and twist it how they want. That's what you're watching right now. You're watching the evolution of an information war. And truth is winning. Why? Because truth always prevails in the end. And you have a mainstream media outlet that has chosen sides. And they're not even trying to hide it anymore. Before, I feel the mainstream media was always left. They were always radical ideologues on the left in CNN and MSNBC. But they were scared to show it. They didn't want people knowing which side they supported. They wanted to remain unbiased about things, at least appear to be unbiased. But when Donald Trump came into office, they took off their mask and they showed everybody their bias. And they justified it because they were like, hey, this is Donald Trump. We got to do everything to stop Hitler, right? They almost like their Trump derangement syndrome forced them to take off their mask and show everybody their bias. And this Trump derangement syndrome has infected the entire legacy establishment media. All of it. And Fox, too. But listen, when you watch Fox, you're not getting, they're not 100% talking about Joe Biden the whole time. I see Fox as a legitimate news source. I don't really watch Fox. I don't really watch a whole lot of stuff because I have my own show. I read a lot. I do mostly reading. The only time I'll watch news outlets is if I'm getting audio pieces. Sometimes I'll watch a little clip here and there if there's somebody I like Victor Davis Hanson is on or Alan Dershowitz. But other than that, I don't really watch news outlets because I have my own show. I got to do my own research and my own show prep for my own channel. And so, but I will tell you this. If you're going to watch news, Fox is 1,000 times better than CNN or MSNBC. Those people on that side have completely lost it. They are 100% propaganda outlets for Joe Biden and the Democrats. That's it. And you're starting to see this unravel. This Trump derangement syndrome is starting to infect more and more, and people, it's almost normal now. So they essentially normalized propaganda on the left. Like they've completely justified their purpose, and they've let everybody know that their purpose, their entire existence on this planet as a media outlet, is to help push the agenda, is to help push the ideology. They're not even hiding it anymore. They want to get Democrats across the board. They want to get Democrats elected across the board, and they're not even trying to hide it. These media outlets like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and you see this this evolution is coming out because you see the sane, rational people, the actual real journalists, they're blowing the whistle. They're either getting fired or they're leaving. And in fact, that's the one last thing I wanted to get into. A very, very interesting conversation, a very interesting article that came out. And it was actually, I think it's a transcript of a conversation that was happening. So this is an article by Ben Smith, right? And he was interviewing Joe Kahn, I guess, which is a New York Times reporter. And what I find interesting about this in the conversation, it was a Q&A. Anyways, in this Q&A, Ben Smith asks, why don't you see your job as, we got to stop Trump? What about your job doesn't let you think that way? Joe Kahn responds. He says, good media is the fourth estate. It's another pillar of democracy. One of the absolute necessities of democracy is having a free and fair and open election where people can compete for votes. And the role of the news media in that environment is not to skew your coverage towards one candidate or the other, but just to provide very good, hard-hitting, well-rounded coverage of both candidates and informing voters. If you believe in democracy, I don't see how we get past the essential role of quality media in informing people about their choice in a presidential election. To say that the threats of democracy are so great that the media is going to abandon its central role as a source of impartial information to help people vote, that's essentially saying that the news media should become a propaganda arm for a single candidate because we prefer that candidate's agenda. It is true that Biden's agenda is more in sync with traditional establishment parties and candidates, and we're reporting on that and making it very clear. It's also true that Trump could win this election in a popular vote. Given that Trump's not in office, it will probably be fair. And there's a very good chance, based on our polling and the other independent polling, that he will win that election in a popular vote. So there are people out there in the world who may decide, based on their democratic rights, to elect Donald Trump as president. It is not the job of the news media to prevent that from happening. It's the job of Biden and the people around Biden to prevent that from happening. It's our job to cover the full range of issues that people have. At the moment, democracy is one of them, but it's not the top one. Immigration happens to be the top. And the economy and the inflation is second. Should we stop covering those things because they're favorable to Trump and minimize them? We become an instrument of the Biden campaign? We turn ourselves into Xinyu News Agency or Pravda and put out a stream of stuff that's very, very favorable to them and only write negative stories about the other side? And what would that accomplish? What? Well, what I'm starting to see is that the sane, rational people in these news outlets are starting to become more open. They're not as afraid as they were back in 2018, in 2019 of this kind of cancel culture. So what I think you're starting to see is that because outlets, because podcasting and YouTubing and these alternative media outlets have kind of paved a way, allowing these people, the sane, rational ones at New York Times or the Washington Post, to kind of say what they really want to say without fear of getting fired. Because they realize, okay, if I get fired, there's other outlets out there. There's other things to do. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of cannibalism in the media outlets. The leftists are going to eat themselves. And all their legitimate, they're really, non-biased fence sitters, they're really milquetoast fence-sitting reporters, they're going to leave. And so you're going to get to a point to where the mainstream legacy media is going to be no more. And what you're going to be left with is all these podcasts, all these YouTube videos. There will be a point in time where people will have all the information they need. And what you're starting to see is these whistleblowers, kind of like this guy, Joe Kahn, where he essentially comes out and says it. News media is not supposed to pick a candidate. And he's essentially calling out his side for saying that that's exactly what happened, is that the left-wing media has picked sides. And that when you start hiding certain things or you stop talking about certain things because it damages that person's because it damages their preferred candidate, you've become essentially a propaganda arm for that political party. And that's exactly what we're watching. And everybody's starting to see it. And based off the polls, people aren't buying it anymore. I just, in a way, I wish this would have happened in 2020 and we wouldn't even be here. But I will say this, just to leave you off with some optimism. The poll numbers look very bleak for Biden. But this is not a shoo-in. But I will say this. I have a good feeling that Donald Trump is going to win because the Biden administration is completely Trump-proofing the bureaucracy right now, burrowing in bureaucrats to where they can't be removed. But that also means that they think he's going to win. In fact, a lot of people think Donald Trump is going to win, and they're actually preparing for a Trump administration. You see this with NATO. You see this with all the European elites. This is what you're starting to see. And so, to Joe Kahn's point, the title of the article is called "The Newsroom is Not a Safe Space." And so what he's trying to come out and say, which I've seen 6 or 7 other reporters in the last 2 years do this, is that the newsroom is starting to become so biased that you are essentially trapped in these are echo chambers now. They're only reporting on stuff that they think is going to help Joe Biden, right? And so when that happens, they lose their credibility. They lose their legitimacy. And that's exactly what we're watching all across the legacy media outlets. The polls show it. Everybody can see it. And why CNN and MSNBC still have a platform is beyond me. Their numbers are abysmal. You have some podcasts and YouTube channels, the conservative ones, that get more views and listens than the entire day of CNN and MSNBC. And so nobody listens to them. Nobody's watching them. All right, this is because they lied so much. They're gaslighting the people so bad that they don't believe them anymore. They've lost all credibility because they keep pushing this insane Trump derangement syndrome. Everything's about Trump, Trump, Trump. It has become a disease. Trump derangement syndrome has infected the newsrooms. That should be the title of this show. That should be the title of this podcast. Trump derangement syndrome has infected the legacy media outlets. I want to start focusing on key data. I want to start focusing on polls. I want to get you some numbers, some data, so you know where we're at. We're 6 months away from the first batch of ballots going out, people voting early. And so we got to get in this. I got to get you the numbers, but I don't want people to get complacent. Sometimes I'm a little reluctant to share the poll numbers because I don't want people, feeling like we got this in the bag. These people are running a full-on weaponization of the justice system right now. That is their strategy. Our strategy is the truth. That's it. You have one side that is trying to kneecap their opponent with lawfare. You have the other side that is just trying to give people the truth. The truth always prevails, my friends. Always. Before we leave off, there's some breaking news happening right now that Israel is going into Rafah. And Rafah, if you haven't heard, is the final location, the final stronghold for the Hamas terrorists. I think there's about 4 battalions left, and they have fortified themselves in this tiny strip of land called Rafah, and Israel has just officially started moving in with tanks. They dropped leaflets earlier, pretty much saying, hey, we're coming in, you better get out. If you don't want to be in this, you better go. And so I guess there was about 1.4 million people that were in Rafah. So let's hope Israel gets this done and gets it over with. That's what they need to do right now. Get in there, get it done, and end this thing. All right? I don't want to hear none of this two-state solution stuff. Get in there, wipe this Hamas terrorist group off the face of the earth, send them with their 72 virgins or whatever it is they believe in, and then start worrying about what you're going to do afterwards. Because this whole stretching this thing out as long as possible because Joe Biden wants to win over some Palestinian voters, this is ridiculous. There was just another report that came out that Joe Biden's withholding very vital armament to Israel. How any Jewish person could vote for Joe Biden at this point, I have no idea. It is clear and obvious that this guy is not pro-Israel. He is nothing, folks. I think that's the key thing with Joe Biden. He is nothing and he is everything at the same time. The man does not have a principle to his name. He will do whatever he has to do. He will be whoever he has to be in order to win power. That is what Joe Biden has been his entire career. All right, you don't stay in politics for 50 years and have a principled bone in your body. You just don't. Joe Biden came in as a segregationist, and now all of a sudden he's anti-white. Now all of a sudden he's pro-Palestinian. It's garbage, folks. The guy is a chameleon. He is awful. He doesn't know anything. He's an old, mumbling, bumbling fool. And that is my bias that I just showed you right then and there. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. If you want to support the show, please follow the show on Rumble and also download the show on all podcast platforms. You can also email me directly at StephenTorrielloShow@gmail.com. And I want you guys to have a good day. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. God bless you and God bless America. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.